The sound of laughter filled our living room, mingling with the soft clink of wine glasses and the warm hum of conversation. It was Saturday night, and our monthly game night with friends was in full swing. 6 of us gathered around the coffee table, empty pizza boxes and half-filled wine glasses, scattered among playing cards and board game pieces. "I've got something different for tonight," announced Chris, reaching into his bag with a mischievous grin. "Something to spice things up a bit. My name is Matthew Collins. I'm 34, a software developer for a financial services company. My wife, Elise, is 33 and works as a marketing coordinator for a publishing house. We've been married for 6 years, together for 9. We met through mutual friends in graduate school and built what I thought was a solid, honest relationship based on trust and open communication." Chris pulled out a box labeled Ultimate Truth Detector Party Game with a theatrical flourish. "Found this at a novelty shop. It's probably complete junk, but I thought it might be fun." "Is that one of those fake lie detectors?" asked Megan, leaning forward to examine the box. "The ones that are basically random." "That's the one," Chris grinned, already opening the package. "It supposedly measures micro changes in your skin conductivity or some pseudo-scientific nonsense. But it's all in good fun." The device was simple. A small plastic unit with lights and a hand sensor. According to the instructions, you placed your thumb on the sensor, answered a question, and the machine would flash green for truth or red for lie, accompanied by corresponding beeps. "Who's brave enough to go first?" Chris asked, setting up the device on the coffee table. "I'll do it," volunteered Dave, always the boldest of our group. "Let's see what this thing can do." What followed was 20 minutes of increasingly ridiculous questions and equally absurd answers. The machine seemed to operate on pure randomness, sometimes flashing green for obvious lies. "Yes, I once dated a famous actress." Sometimes red for clear truths. "My name is Dave Wilson." We were all laughing, taking turns asking each other silly questions, the wine flowing freely as the night progressed. The questions gradually became more personal, but still lighthearted. "Have you ever snooped through your partner's phone?" "Did you really like the birthday gift I gave you last year?" "Are you secretly planning to quit your job?" When it was Elise's turn, she placed her thumb on the sensor with theatrical reluctance, her smile bright in the warm light of our living room. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and she looked beautiful in the simple blue dress she'd chosen for the evening. "Ask away," she said, raising her wine glass with her free hand. "I'm an open book." "Have you ever lied about liking Matt's cooking?" Megan asked, prompting laughter from the group. "Never," Elise replied with exaggerated sincerity. The machine flashed red. More laughter. "Do you actually enjoy these game nights? Or do you secretly wish you were somewhere else?" asked Dave. "Game nights are the highlight of my month," she answered. Green light, cheers all around. Then Chris, with the timing of someone who thinks they're being cleverly provocative, but is actually stumbling into dangerous territory, asked, "Have you ever cheated on Matt?" The question hung in the air for a moment, not entirely inappropriate among close friends after several glasses of wine, but pushing the boundaries of our usual banter. I expected Elise to roll her eyes, make a joke, give a firm no that would be confirmed with a green light, and we'd move on. Instead, there was the briefest hesitation, so slight that only someone who knew her as well as I did would notice. "Of course not," she said, her voice steady but slightly higher than normal. The machine flashed red. A series of sharp beeps filled the suddenly quiet room. In any other context, with any other question, we would have laughed it off. The device was a toy, a gag gift, with no real ability to detect lies. But in that moment, I looked at Elise and saw something that turned my blood cold. The color had drained from her face, her eyes widening slightly before she forced a laugh. "This thing is so broken," she said, pulling her hand away from the sensor. "It said I was lying about liking Matt's cooking too." The others laughed, the moment passing as quickly as it had arrived. The game continued, moving on to the next person. But something had shifted. I couldn't focus on the questions or answers anymore. My attention was fixed on Elise, the slight tremor in her hand as she reached for her wine glass, the way she avoided meeting my eyes directly, the forced quality of her laughter for the rest of the evening. By the time our friends left around midnight, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. It was a stupid party game, a random electronic toy with no actual lie-detecting capabilities. Elise's reaction was probably just embarrassment at the inappropriate question. Or maybe she was tired, or the wine had affected her more than I realized. We cleaned up together in comfortable silence, loading the dishwasher, wiping down counters, falling into the domestic rhythm we'd perfected over years of marriage. Everything felt normal, routine, except for the question now lodged in my mind like a splinter. "That was fun," Elise said as we got ready for bed. "Though I think Chris had a bit too much wine." "Yeah," I agreed, watching her remove her earrings in the bathroom mirror. That lie detector game was pretty ridiculous. She met my eyes in the reflection, her expression carefully neutral. "Total nonsense, like those mood rings we had as kids." I nodded, looking for any sign, any tell that might confirm or dispel my suspicions. "That question Chris asked you was out of line." "Which one?" she asked, reaching for her face wash, her back now to me. "About cheating," I said, watching her shoulders for any tension. "Kind of crossed a line for game night." "Oh, that," she said dismissively. "Yeah, inappropriate. But that's Chris after 3 glasses of wine." She continued her bedtime routine, seemingly untroubled. I almost let it go, almost convinced myself that my concerns were unfounded, that I was seeing problems where none existed. But something kept nagging at me, not just her reaction during the game, but small discrepancies that had accumulated over recent months. Late nights at work that had become more frequent. A new password on her phone that she'd never shared with me. Weekend networking events that seemed to leave her energized rather than drained. As we lay in bed that night, the soft sound of her breathing beside me usually a comfort. I found myself wide awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying moments from the past year, looking for patterns I might have missed. Morning came after a mostly sleepless night. I moved through our Sunday routine, coffee, breakfast, reading the news, with a sense of unreality, as if I were watching myself perform familiar actions from a distance. "I'm going to run to the office for a bit," Elise said, gathering her laptop bag. "I need to finish that presentation for Monday's client meeting. Shouldn't be more than a couple hours." "On a Sunday?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "I thought that presentation was nearly done." "It is, but I want to polish it," she replied, not quite meeting my eyes. "You know how important this client is." I did know. Just as I knew that this was the 3rd Sunday this month, she'd gone to the office. As she kissed me goodbye, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. One that went against everything I believed about trust and privacy in a relationship. I waited 15 minutes after she left, then went to our home office. Elise's personal laptop sat on the desk, closed but not locked. She rarely logged out at home. We'd always had an open policy about devices, nothing to hide from each other. Or so I thought. Her email was still open in the browser. Most messages were work-related, communications with clients, colleagues, her boss. Nothing suspicious. I was about to close the browser, relieved and ashamed, when I noticed a folder labeled simply Ideas and Inspiration. Curiosity and dread propelled me forward. Inside were dozens of emails between Elise and someone named Andrew. The exchanges started professionally, discussions about marketing strategies, book promotions, industry events. But as I scrolled through, the tone shifted, became more personal, more intimate. Tuesday night is still on my mind. One message from Andrew read, "The way you looked in that restaurant. I couldn't focus on anything else all evening." Elise's reply, "I've been thinking about it too. About what you said before we left. About wanting more time together, not just stolen hours." My hands felt cold as I continued reading, each message confirming what I'd feared. The affair had been going on for nearly 4 months, meeting in hotels during networking events, lunches that extended into afternoons, careful coordination to avoid suspicion. I sat back, a strange numbness spreading through me. The woman I'd built my life with, the person I trusted most in the world, had been living a double life, and I'd been completely blind to it. I checked at the time. Elise would be gone for at least another hour before returning from the office, which, according to an email I'd just read, was actually a cafe where she was meeting Andrew to discuss their situation. I closed the laptop, my mind racing through options. Confront her immediately. Wait and gather more information. Pretend I knew nothing while I decided what to do. None of the choices seemed right, all of them leading to more pain. In the end, I opted for directness. I texted her, "We need to talk when you get home. It's important." Her reply came quickly, "Everything okay?" "No," I responded, "but it can wait until you're home." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Heading home now." She arrived 30 minutes later, her laptop bag over her shoulder, her face showing concern mixed with something else. Wariness, perhaps, or guilt. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting down her bag. I sat at the kitchen table, strangely calm despite the storm inside me. The lie detector was right last night, wasn't it? She froze, color draining from her face for the second time in 24 hours. "What are you talking about?" "You've been cheating on me," I said, the words strange and painful in my mouth. "With Andrew." Her hand went to the counter as if to steady herself. "Matt, I saw the emails," I continued. "I know about the hotels, the fake work meetings, all of it." She sank into the chair across from me, the pretense falling away. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "Few people do," I said, surprised by the lack of anger in my voice. Just exhaustion, profound sadness. "It started at the publishing conference in March," she said after a long silence. "Andrew was a speaker. We got talking at the reception afterward. It was just professional at first, then it wasn't," I finished for her. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. I kept telling myself it was just a friendship, then that it was just a brief attraction that would pass. By the time I admitted to myself what was happening, we were already sleeping together, I said, needing her to acknowledge it directly. "Yes." A tear slipped down her cheek. "It was wrong. I know that. I've been trying to figure out how to end it." "End it?" I raised an eyebrow. The emails from yesterday suggested you were discussing how to spend more time together, not less. She looked down at her hands. It's complicated. I care about him, but I love you. Our life together. I've been confused, trying to understand what I want. And what do you want, Elise? She looked at me then, really looked at me. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know. That's the honest truth. I love our life, our history. But with Andrew, I feel, what? Alive. In a way I haven't felt in years. The words cut deeper than any accusation could have, because there was truth in them, a truth I'd been avoiding. We had grown comfortable, predictable. I had stopped really seeing her, stopped being curious about her inner world, assuming I already knew everything there was to know. I need some time, I said finally, standing up. I can't be here right now. I packed a bag while Elise sat in the kitchen, silent tears tracking down her face. As I headed for the door, she spoke. What happens now? I paused, my hand on the doorknob. I don't know. I need to think, to decide if there's anything left here worth saving. I spent the next week at my brother's apartment across town, moving through my days like a ghost. I worked from home, coding automatically, my mind circling around the collapse of my marriage, while my fingers typed lines of programming language. Elise texted daily, brief messages at first. I'm so sorry, and please talk to me. Then longer ones as the days passed. She'd ended it with Andrew, she told me. Completely. Wanted to talk, to explain, to see if we could find a way forward. After 9 days, I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown, where we used to spend Sunday mornings reading together before life got busy. She was already there when I arrived, seated at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a mug. She looked different somehow, smaller, less certain. The Elise I'd known had always filled a room with her confidence. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down across from her. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak yet. I've ended it with Andrew, she said after a moment. Completely. I told him I can't see him anymore, professionally or otherwise. I've asked for a transfer to a different publishing division. Okay. I know that doesn't fix anything, she continued. I know I've broken something precious between us. Why, Elise? I finally asked. Was it just excitement? Something new? She considered the question carefully. Partly, yes. But it was more than that. Somewhere along the way, we stopped talking. Really talking. About our dreams, our fears, our disappointments. We became efficient partners rather than passionate ones. I couldn't argue with that. We had fallen into patterns, routines that worked, but had lost their meaning. That doesn't justify betrayal, I said quietly. No, it doesn't. Nothing does. I made choices, terrible, selfish choices, and I'll regret them for the rest of my life. We sat in silence for a long moment, the sounds of the coffee shop, steaming milk, quiet conversations, the clink of cups, washing over us. I don't know if I can trust you again, I finally said. Trust isn't just about believing you won't cheat. It's about believing in the story we're telling together. I know, she whispered, but I want to try, to rebuild that trust, to find our way back to each other, if you're willing. Was I willing? I looked at her, this woman I had loved for so long, this woman who had hurt me so deeply. The answer wasn't simple. I can't promise anything, I said honestly, but I'm willing to try, to talk, to see if there's anything left worth saving. She nodded, relief and sadness mingling in her eyes. That's all I can ask for. As we left the coffee shop, walking side by side but not touching, I realized that whatever happened next would require a kind of attention I hadn't given our relationship in years. A willingness to look closely, to listen deeply, to feel fully. Whether we found our way back to each other or parted for good, I knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the truth comes from the most unexpected sources. Even a cheap plastic toy at a party game night. And once revealed, it can never be hidden again. If this story touched you, leave a like to show your support, and subscribe for more whispered tales of heartbreak and hope.